What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and happy New Year's Eve, or I guess depending on where you are on the planet Earth, it might actually be New Year's Eve day to you. Or if you're watching this after the fact, it might even be New Year's Eve day. New Year's Day? I don't know. I work every single day. They all run together. Most days I'm not sure exactly what day of the week it is until Sunday comes around with the one day I keep for myself. And then the whole rat race starts again on Monday. But there's an interesting little sympathy push for critics, of all people. Critics, movie critics. Now, as you all know, movie critics are the enemy of the people. Why? Well, because their opinions seem to drive filmmaking, and which it isn't inherently a bad thing if movie critics were not just pathetic losers who really wish they'd be critiquing politics, but are instead stuck with critiquing movies. Therefore, every movie review they write is inherently political in some way. If they actually reviewed movies, they would be useful, but they aren't useful. They are garbage merchants who ruin movies. Critics, TM, are the real reason why so much garbage comes out of Hollywood the way it is. Now, I'm sure there are some nice movie critics out there, but the overwhelming majority of them that you might find on a place like Rotten Tomatoes are utter trash. But now there appears to be some weird push to restore the reputation of the woke critic, but I am not about to let that happen. This story after a quick word from this video sponsor. Huge shout out to this video sponsor, Established Titles. Now, this may be the most interesting sponsorship I've had yet. Established Titles is a project based on a historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lords and ladies. The Established Title Pack gives you at least 1 square foot of dedicated land on a private estate in Scotland and an official certificate with a crest. It looks absolutely sick. Lord Jeremy from The Quartering, my official proclamation. Also remember that they have a charity partner, Trees for the Future, and One Tree Planted. They plant a tree for every single order, which is absolutely awesome. So you can get this sweet gift for someone or yourself. You can get a certificate proving your title as well as a unique plot number with which you can see the exact location of your land. Established Titles might be one of the best last-minute gifts ever. You could get even a couple pack for you and your partner, where you get adjoining plots of land. Getting this certificate also helps you officially change your name to Lord or Lady and get it on a credit card or some other, whatever else you want, apparently. For those with Scottish heritage, it's also a great way to connect with family. Established Titles is having a great limited time sale, so go to establishedtitles.com/thequartering to save 10% off today. And remember to use the discount code thequartering, or just click the link below. That's establishedtitles.com/thequartering. Now, the story comes from a unfamiliar space for most people. Alex Winter, you know, the guy that played in Bill and Ted and I don't know, nothing else, decided to put out this tweet today. The current targeting of film critics, you can always tell it's somebody who's like a left-wing nut job when they use words like inciting or targeting or alpha giga chad energy, something like that. But anyway, the current targeting of film critics as the enemy of the people would be laughable if it didn't speak to a pervasive, growing contempt for scholarship, expertise, and intellectual critique. Hold on, wait a minute, something ain't right here. First of all, I would be blown away if most critics of modern Hollywood movies and television shows had any kind of meaningful degree in film, first of all. I would also be shocked if any of them actually worked in the film industry. Now, I'm sure there are exceptions to this rule, but all you need to do is look through the critics' reviews on places like Rotten Tomatoes to see these people aren't actually reviewing movies All they want to do is take a movie and make it about politics. Look at this latest garbage film from Leonardo DiCaprio, where Hillary Clinton's the president, and conservatives are just so stupid about climate change that they literally won't look at the sky. There were moments in that movie that would have been decent, but the filmmaker felt like they had to appeal to left-wing political pundits in the critic sphere. In that particular case, it backfired because the critics didn't like the movie. And first and foremost, let me just say this. I think Leonardo DiCaprio is a fine actor, one of the best even. However, I don't really want to hear from a guy that travels around the world in his own private jet about climate change. I think that's a reasonable request as a normal pleb who's just out here trying to make a living. Look, I believe that we should reduce emissions and that reusable energy is important. And I support it and I invest my money in it. But I'm also not, well, I guess some people might disagree, but I'm not an insufferable snob traveling around in my private jet either. I'm just trying to make practical everyday changes. But Leonardo DiCaprio's ridiculous political Don't Look Up movie was a perfect example of these, modern day films that are designed to appeal to left-wing political movie critics, because that's what they are. They're not movie critics first. They're left-wing political pundits first, who just happen to be forced to talk about movies. It's the same reason you look at the overwhelming majority of video game critics. Websites like Kotaku and Polygon, these are just left-wing political outlets that are forced to use the vehicle of modern video games to talk about left-wing politics. And by the way, it would be just as bad if it was right-wing politics. I want a movie review from somebody like Siskel and Ebert, who are going to tell me whether or not a movie is good. Well, a long time ago. Now, all I get is, well, what are the politics of the current actor or actresses in the movie? What are the politics of the director? Did the movie own Drumpf enough? Because if it doesn't own Drumpf enough, they don't like it. Anyway, I digress. Accompanied by a moral imperative being imposed on culture. That's scary. What? Literally what? Bill and Ted actor Alex Winter claims criticizing film critics is part of a pervasive growing contempt for scholarship, expertise, and intellectual critique. Shut up. Bill and Ted actor Alex Winter recently claimed that critiquing film critics is part of pervasive growing contempt for scholarship, expertise, and intellectual critique. This via bounding into comics.com. Winter's comments seemingly come following backlash to critic reviews of a recently released Netflix film, Don't Look Up, that follows two astronomers as they go on a media tour to warn humankind about a comet hurling towards Earth. Armageddon did it better in every possible way, by the way. The response from a distracted world, meh. The film is about climate change, according to its director, Adam McKay. As part of a conversation with writer Joe Wright, published by Variety, McKay stated that came to me from a place that had a lot of good ideas from, which is stark terror. This has been building for 10 or 12 years, where the climate crisis is everything I've learned about. It just seems worse. You can't keep calling something a crisis if it's been going on for 1 billion years. It doesn't really work. It's just like a climate reality at that point. And by the way, I'm all for saving the planet, planting trees, reducing emissions, taxing foreign countries like China and India who pour orders of magnitude more pollution into the earth than the United States. But we turn a blind eye for cheap stuff. I'm 100% fine taxing them and making sure that they do better for this planet. 100%. McKay and the film's writer David Sirota, this former speechwriter for Bernie Sanders, shocking, would respond to critics criticizing the film. First, McKay tweeted, "Loving all the heated debate about our movie, but if you don't have at least a small ember of anxiety about climate collapsing or the U.S. teetering, I'm not sure Don't Look Up makes any sense." He explained, "It's like a robot viewing a love story. Why are their faces so close together?" Sirota would add his own thoughts, writing, "Not surprised that an aide to the morning TV show host doesn't like our film. Fine. You just don't get it, as he rips one in a wine glass and smells it. What's annoying is instead of admitting to its refusal to cover climate and having more scientists on its airwaves, CNN has decided to publish whatever this is, he added. So he's butthurt that CNN didn't like his movie. Because the reason he made this movie, the reason Don't Look Up is a woke backfire, is because they made this movie to suckle at the teat of left-wing media, and they didn't even like it. Isn't that funny? If movie critics are skeptical of Don't Look Up, maybe it's because they've spent the last 15 years or so cutting slack for well-intentioned movies about climate change that ended up changing precisely nothing. Oh yes, you're changing the world, Mr. Hollywood director. I wrote an alt weekly cover story about an inconvenient truth, and I don't regret it. But I would also be lying if I said the media made an iota difference. Okay, so you don't need the media or do need the media? Alex Winter writes, this is something every honest doc director lives with. Doing the work without the expectation of moving the needle. Making well-told, compelling stories is hard enough and has to be the end game. The rest is out of our hands. Yeah, well, you're having a mental breakdown because the left-wing critics that you hoped would love your climate change movie didn't like it. It's almost an impossible standard to set, as I'm sure you know. And I love stories of just being stories. But when the filmmakers are out here saying that it's their endgame, etc. Film critics, of course, are bought and paid for by film studios, and they've even admitted it. Sci-Fi Wire's Danny Roth said as much during Sci-Fi Wire podcast, quote, in Who Won the Week back in 2019, alongside Sci-Fi Editors-in-Chief Adam Swinderski and contributing editor Karama Horn. Karama Horn. Roth says on the podcast, here's the actual reality. Here's where we actually are in the industry. If you want to talk about, quote, media access, every single person that wants to have access to things early, that wants access to things so that traffic is drawn to their site, will on occasion, everybody at this podcast, everybody in our industry occasionally has to play softball. Occasionally has to look, the other way a little bit. Everybody has to do it. He explained, in the sense that I hated the movie, but I won't say that I hated a movie or an actor behaved a sort of way, and you don't want to put it out there that it happened. Critics are liars. They work together with the film industry, and they deserve every bit of criticism and ire that they can get. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.